Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. We're coming to you from beautiful downtown Wayne in Radnor Studio 21. We like to bring you people from the community who are doing something important in terms of a charity, a political movement, arts and culture, academia. And our guest today is Marisa Falcon, who is a staff person at HIAS, Pennsylvania. We'll have to tell you what HIAS stands for. But thank you so much, Marisa, for coming here.
Sure.
And tell us your exact title.
I am the Development and Communications Coordinator at HIAS, Pennsylvania.
Okay, which means what?
Well, so HIAS stands for Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. We were founded in 1882, originally as a Jewish serving organization, a sort of way for Jews coming into Philadelphia to find a home. So they would welcome the people in, help them get settled, help them find jobs, all those sort of things. As the years have gone on, our mission has slightly changed. It has
More than slightly. It has grown, expanded, more than slightly, yes.
It's been 130 years, so it's not too surprising that things have changed. But so today we serve immigrants from all over the world and providing immigration legal services and refugee resettlement, but all sort of tied into this Jewish value of welcoming the stranger and making Philadelphia and the United States welcoming to immigrants and refugees.
And one of the major things that HIAS Pennsylvania does is to offer courses to teach new immigrants the history of America so they can pass their citizenship tests.
Yes, our citizenship program has really grown in the last few years. With help from the federal government, we've been able to secure funding over 2 years that has allowed us to really expand programming throughout Philadelphia. So now we have citizenship classes, seminars, as well as our basic legal services work, where we help people fill out all the necessary paperwork to become citizens, get them any waivers that they might be eligible for. It can be sort of expensive to file for your citizenship, and some of them can't afford it. And so we help them get free waivers if they're eligible. If they are medically unable to go to the test, then we can get them medical waivers. And we have accredited representatives who are people who are not attorneys, but have the accreditation necessary so they can represent people in front of a judge. And so they help those people fill out the necessary paperwork and make sure that they're eligible and make sure that they will be able to actually go through this process well.
Because people come to HIAS from countries around the world, there are lots of challenging language difficulties.
Yes.
How many different languages do the staff people at HIAS Pennsylvania speak?
I think currently we are at 13.
13 languages. Ooh, and be fluent in all of them. Do you speak other languages?
I don't, unfortunately.
But you're good at English.
I am good at English.
You're very good at English.
I am one of the very few people in our office who isn't fluent in another language. Our administrative assistant alone speaks, I think, 5 languages.
And I know Russian is a primary language, but also there are so many boat people from Asia, and you've got people in HIAS Pennsylvania who can interpret for them.
Yeah, we have 2 case aides right now. One is from Burma and one is from Bhutan, which are the 2 main Southeast Asian populations that we are resettling. And so they sort of serve as liaisons between the staff and the community. So they are well known in their own communities and also are staff members. And so they sort of make sure that there is proper acculturation between the staff and the communities, and are trusted by the communities. And so if they go in and say, we can help you with this, then they believe them.
It must be very terrifying to get on a boat, come to a strange land, a strange city, not knowing anybody and not knowing the language, so that even if you turn on the television or if you pick up a newspaper, you don't know what it says. You don't know what, and you can't communicate what it is you need or what you are trying to find out.
It's true. Though I have to say a lot of especially the refugees who come over that we work with are mostly very excited to be here. They've been in transition for a long time and are really ready to become independent, be on their feet, be in a home that they actually feel like is their home, which is actually why, and so one of the things that we do when the refugees first come in, because we work with them from the moment that they land to 3 to 6 months after they get here. And one of the things that we do is get them enrolled in English classes. There can be a bit of a lag time because many English classes, they need to have some of the legal paperwork put in place, and that can take about a month. So there's this month where they aren't able to take any classes, but they really want to take classes. And so right now, our refugee program is working on developing an ESL program specifically for those people in those first weeks that they're here, where they really want to be able to speak English, but they can't yet. And so we're going to help them by having classes on site that teach those people who aren't yet eligible for other classes.
The executive director of HIAS Pennsylvania, Judy Bernstein Baker, is an attorney who's won all kinds of awards for her not only helping immigrants, but for her relationships with all the other ethnic communities in our region. Who are some of the organizations, which are some of the agencies that you partner with at HIAS?
Oh, it is a lengthy list. So in the refugee community, there are 2 other agencies that resettle refugees in Philadelphia. One is Nationality Service Center, and the other is Lutheran Children Family Services. So the 3 of us all talk together all the time to sort of make sure that the needs of the different community members are being met, to make sure that we're ready for any new waves of populations that are coming in that we don't yet have. There's going to be people from the Congo have recently started coming in, and so there was a big conversation about where we should be putting them and how we should be working together to make sure these communities will be welcomed.
What about
have to go through the
what about the
specific
Ukraine
programs.
with all that's happening? I mean, HIAS often sees a reflection of world problems by the nature of the population that's coming through your doors.
Yeah.
So I was thinking this week, I wonder if there's going to be another wave of Soviet, of Ukraine
I wouldn't be surprised.
refugees, because situation is so perilous in the Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
Really scary.
We haven't quite seen that yet. I think mostly right now we'll see it through people seeking asylum, not necessarily people who are here as refugees.
Explain what asylum means.
So asylum is very similar to refugees. So now I'm going to have to pretend to be a legal expert.
Okay.
I am not. But so refugees are people who have been designated by the UN Human Relations Council to be resettled from the place that they are now to whatever country accepts them because of their current plight, religious persecution, racial persecution, whatever the designation is.
That's different from just wanting to immigrate.
Right. They are actually sent to the country. They don't come to the country by themselves.
Okay.
The UN decides that they can be they can go to another country that will accept them. Asylum seekers are people who come to the United States or come to whatever country they are going to escape the same kind of persecution, racial persecution, religious persecution, but don't have that refugee status. So they come here, and then from here they petition to be for asylum. So the refugees come with their status, the asylees come over here and then apply for the status. That is the main distinction.
Whom do they apply to? The United Nations?
No, they apply to whatever government agency they're in. So they apply to the U.S. government if they're here.
And you help them fill out those forms to apply for asylum.
We do.
Give us some specific examples of cases where people were here seeking asylum and needed asylum.
Yeah, I was actually just reading over one of those stories on the way here. There's a man who came over from Mauritania and who had been beaten for trying to advocate for the rights of Black individuals because they were being persecuted by the lighter-skinned minority. And so he had been jailed several times, finally was able to escape and come to America and petition for asylum. And so Highest Pennsylvania, with the help of one of our pro bono practice groups at Schneider, was able to
That's the law firm, Schneider Harrison.
Yes.
Okay.
Was able to apply for citizenship for him.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many attorneys who do good deeds, who donate their time to provide vital legal services for people who come often with just the clothes on their back.
Yes.
And there are so many volunteers at Highest Pennsylvania who are doing remarkable work. There's a group of women at Mainline Reform Congregation down in Wynwood, and Risa Rudney leads this group of women. They knit hats and gloves and scarves. They collect clothing.
They do amazing work.
They donate. They have the whole congregation working. And tell us what happens when you help resettle somebody in their own home, their own apartment.
Sure. So, so our resettlement team sort of does everything with these people for the first few months that they're here. So we find out that that a family will be coming, and before they get here, we find them a house. We furnish that house with donated furniture, mostly that has been procured by the Mainline Reform Temple cohort. And then we pick them up at the airport. We take them to their house, show them how to use all of the things in the house, and then work with them very closely, starting within the first 24 hours that they're here by helping them figure out how to get around the city, how to get a bank account, how to get into job training, try to place them into jobs if we can, try to get them into ESL programming, as I mentioned before, sort of do everything possible that we can to make sure that they can be on their feet. We also make sure that all of their health needs are being met. So we have one staff member who specifically works with the refugees to make sure that they are going to their health care appointments. And we...
you have to find doctors who could speak their language as well, right? Or
Well,
you send a translator along with?
There's often a translator. We have a partnership with Penn Medicine and CHOP, where they have a refugee health clinic where they will see our clients for free. It's a really amazing partnership and wonderful asset.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, Judy Bernstein Baker, your executive director,
Yes.
often reports to the board about cases she's involved in, and one of the things that's most troubling is when there's like a mother and her children who have escaped a horrible situation, whatever country they come from, but they don't have the proper papers, and the United States government claps them up into some kind of a facility that's sort of like a prison, right, outside of Harrisburg.
Well, so we have a new program where we have one attorney whose job it's actually only children. There's a detention facility in Pennsylvania that I have to keep vague, that is currently housing immigrant youth who have been detained. And this is within the first 24 to 46 hours that they've been detained. They send them to various facilities, and this is the one near us. And so we have an attorney who goes out there and teaches the kids what rights they have and what rights they do not have as detained immigrants.
And why are they detained? I mean, what is the reason that they've been scooped up and sent to a facility?
They're often kids who were caught at the border.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're from all over. They're mostly from
and they're separated
South and
from their
Central
parents
America.
at that point?
Well, they're coming by themselves. These are kids who have come on their own.
Oh, okay. Probably at the urging of their parents, right?
It depends. Some of them are coming here because their parents are already here and they want to get back to them. Some of them because they think that they can build a better life here, not necessarily at the urging of their parents, but that's what they see. They see their parents struggle and they want to help, and so they want to come here. We have 2 attorneys who work specifically with immigrant youth who are here as unaccompanied minors. We have the one who does the Know Your Rights programming, and then we have another attorney who specifically works with these kids, providing them legal services.
And there have been cases where there's a woman who's the victim of domestic abuse who somehow gets out of her country and comes here and applies for asylum. And that's a tricky slope, right?
Yeah, so we also have another attorney who specifically works with victims of domestic violence, and which can be both victims of domestic violence in their home country and when they're here. This is all under the Violence Against Women Act that Congress passed, and it says that victims of domestic violence should be able to report their domestic violence without being worried about being reported to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And so they set up a system where if you help the law will help you, essentially. So if you are willing to report, then you can be eligible for a visa that will give you legal status. So then your partner who is abusing you can no longer say, well, you're here because of me and you depend on me to be here. That issue is out of the window because now they can work on their own, they can have their own legal standing. So it gives them independence, and it also gives the police incentive because they can actually get reports on these acts that they wouldn't necessarily hear about otherwise.
What's one of the most outstanding success stories you can think of in the time you've been with HIAS?
Total, overall, in all of our programming? It's hard to pick. I mean, there are so many stories that come in and out of our offices every single day. You know, we serve 100, I think last year was 161 refugees and over 2,000 legal clients. 2,000,
ooh.
Yeah, with a staff of 12, a total staff of 22. And yeah, I think our refugee program is at about 7 people. So it's hard to pick.
Well, Citizenship Day,
yeah,
I've been a few times to the courthouse when a whole new group of citizens are sworn in as American citizens. There's such excitement. It's really such a giant celebration, flag waving, tears of joy. It's really remarkable.
It's true. And yeah, so those sort of happen regularly, where all of the people who have passed the test come in and they all get the ceremony done at the same time, and part of the, we have a thing called Pro Bono Citizenship Day, where this year we're having 150 attorneys volunteer their time on March 29th, which is a Saturday. And it doesn't matter if you're an immigration attorney or not. If you want to come, then find us, hiaspa.org. And they help fill out the applications for people who are eligible for citizenship.
Oh, so we're putting out the call to anyone who's an attorney to help fill out the paperwork. You can call HIAS at 215-832-0900. That's 215-832-0900. Or you can Google www.hiaspa.org. That's HIASPA.org. HIAS, by the way, belongs to a national organization.
Well, we are actually our own independent organization, but
related to.
Yeah, friends with.
Yes.
Yeah, there's HIAS in New York, and we most directly work with them through the refugee program. The way the refugee system is set up, which I also cannot go into detail because I'm also not an expert in this, but the UN allocates people to sort of flagship organizations called VOLAGs, and there are only a handful of them throughout the country. And those people allocate the refugees out to all of their partners. And so HIAS is our VOLAG. So people get sent to HIAS, and HIAS sends them to us. And so we have a very direct partnership in that way.
Right. And every time there is a board meeting of HIAS, Judy Bernstein Baker makes sure that there are some clients that you've served who will be there. They're either presenting their artwork or their music, or there's an outstanding student that gets an award for having made the successful transition into American schools.
Yeah.
And you have a big event coming up, the Golden Door Gala.
Yep.
The date is April 30th.
It is.
And where's it going to be?
It's going to be at the Lowe's at 12th and Market in downtown Philadelphia.
Lowe's Hotel. And the Golden Door, the title comes from the inscription, a poem by Emma Lazarus on the bottom of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, exactly.
So the Golden Door. Give me your tired, your poor, your helpless masses yearning to be free. And the guest speaker this year, the honoree, is, and Marisa was nice enough to bring along a copy of Stephen Roberts' book called My Father's Houses. This is his memoir.
Yes.
And if the name Stephen Roberts sounds a little familiar, it's because his wife is Cokie Roberts.
Yes, it is. Yes.
The famous journalist. And they've co-authored a book prior to this, because theirs is a mixed marriage that's been successful for 40-some years. And they wrote a Passover Seder book, a Passover Haggadah, tying together their two religious backgrounds.
Yes, exactly.
And Roberts is going to speak, and he's talking about everybody's a refugee from somewhere.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
exactly.
everybody's a refugee. And the book is going to be talking about, he's going to be talking about his family's background, history. But you said he also wrote another book about refugees?
From Every End of This Earth, which is the story of 13 immigrants, and they're coming to the U.S. and making new lives. So this memoir is about, it's both a memoir of his childhood, but it's also the influence of his immigrant ancestors. Both of his grandfathers were immigrants, and so he talks about how that has been sort of a pervasive theme in his life and has really influenced how he thinks about himself and the world, which is why we wanted him to come and talk to us. Oh, because that's how we think about the world.
At one of your galas, the owner and founder of Boscov's department stores, Albie Boscov's, was the main honoree.
Yes.
What a delightful person he
my
was.
goodness.
And a philanthropist as well.
Yes, very much so.
And I'm sure that the Roberts, I mean, her family, you know, they such outstanding elected officials, service. She was raised to serve the public.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's what she got, because when her father died, her mother, Lindy Boggs, took over the father's congressional seat and served for many years.
Yeah.
So she comes by her political knowledge honestly.
Oh, yes.
Cokie Roberts. Is she going to be there to hear her husband speak?
We don't yet know.
Be lovely if she were there.
It would be. And if she is, we're going to have her introduce him. But we're keeping this an event about Stephen, not about Cokie.
And what kind of award is he going to get?
Well, so he's giving the keynote address, and then and he'll get some sort of award that I haven't yet figured out. But then we're also giving awards to 4 others. One of them is the Immigration Impact, which is the Pro Bono Association's new program that actually began because of Joe Biden, who wanted to
That
create...
name sounds so familiar.
I know.
Oh, yes, the Vice President of the United States.
Yeah, him. So he decided that there needed to be more access, more free legal services to low-income people. And so he started this project called the Immigration Impact Project. And in Philadelphia, the Immigration Impact Project is focusing on domestic violence. And so since we have this domestic violence program, we are working very closely with the local law firms that are doing this project. So we are honoring them.
The president judge of the courts of New York State was a keynote speaker at the Philadelphia Bar Association a couple of years ago. And his whole pitch was, we need more pro bono services. We can't have people going into the criminal justice system without representation. And if they can't afford representation, and he gave examples of some horror stories where people were incarcerated unfairly because they didn't have appropriate defense. They didn't have anybody to speak for them. So I'm glad to hear that Vice President Biden has picked up on this as well.
Yeah, so there are sort of flagship programs, I think, in 8 cities across the country. I think the first one was in San Francisco, and then in Philadelphia, and a number of other cities that are all sort of trying this new effort to get pro bono attorneys to come in and increase access to low-income people.
And on April 30th, who are the other 2 honorees?
So then we also are honoring one of our beloved staff members, Lori Alexander, who has been with us for 35 years.
Yes,
so we thought we would congratulate her on 35 years. Adele and Erwin Lipton, who are both past presidents of High Pennsylvania and active board members and mainliners and beloved members of society and of the Jewish community. And then also Ludi Soderman, who is the Director of Multilingual Family Support Office at the Philadelphia School District. So she is really one of the people who make sure that the immigrants and refugees who are coming into the school district can get their needs met and get language access met and make sure that the community is as welcoming to them as we want them to be, as much as she can.
Let's find out a little bit about your background and what brought you to HIAS in the few minutes we have left. Where did you go to college?
I went to Skidmore College in upstate New York.
And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Virginia. I grew up on a dairy farm. My father is Israeli and grew up on a kibbutz outside of, in Kinneret on the Sea of Galilee. And so had farming in his blood and came to the United States and met my mom and bought a farm and had a bunch of girls. And yeah, and then I ended up in Philadelphia about 7 years ago.
Is your mother American?
She is.
And what kind of work does your mother do?
She's a Spanish teacher.
Oh. And you don't speak Spanish?
I know.
Oh.
Or Hebrew. I don't speak either of them.
Well, you have your assignments right mapped out for you now.
I've had it for the last 28 years.
And what attracted you to HIAS?
Well, so I had been working in another immigration-focused agency and was interested in staying in that and also interested in becoming a full-time development and communications professional. So so then when this job opened up, and it was sort of the perfect medley of people who understood my background of being an immigrant daughter and a Jewish daughter and working with the new immigrants coming in and had the development and communications part, it all sort of fell together perfectly. Well,
we hope we get a lot of people to come to hear Steve Roberts.
Yes.
Who will be the keynote speaker at the April 30th HIAS Pennsylvania Golden Door event at Lowe's, Pennsylvania. I think it starts, at 5:30?
Yes.
And it's always an exciting event. And I've not met him in person, but that should be really terrific. And our guest today has been Marisa Falcon from HIAS Pennsylvania. And thank you so much, Marisa.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next week.